So today I just want to talk about some of the bracing options that we have for plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis. Basically, the fundamental purpose of these braces is actually to pull your foot up into dorsiflexion. So the reason why it's pulling it up into dorsiflexion is because this position generally puts your plantar fascia on a lengthened position and also puts your calf on a lengthened position. The reason why we want to sleep with these muscles in a lengthened position is when you first put your foot onto the floor, you're not having to fight through that tightness and have that amount of pain that you get first thing in the morning if you're not wearing one of these braces. The main difference between these braces is how they fixate to your foot or how they hold your foot in that optimal position. Now, from my perspective, there's more than three, but there's three that I'm going to talk about today. So the first is the one that we all know, and that's the Strasbourg Sock. Now, from a position perspective, I think this is as optimal as you probably can get it because the pressure has been applied to the ends of your toes. So by pulling up through the ends of your toes, you're able to pull your foot into that dorsiflex position, but you're also able to pull your toes into that extended position. Now, I've worn a Strasbourg sock before, and my complaint about it is the comfort of this sock. Because if you're levering or pulling on your toes for an extended period of time, that becomes quite uncomfortable and tends to cause some throbbing or aching as the night goes on. Now, I've personally tried different levels of tension along the way, but for me, I just find that I can't really wear that sock for the whole night, and therefore becomes realistically obsolete because all the work that I do early in the night is undone by the time I take that brace off. But from a positional perspective, if it is something that is comfortable for you, I think is actually a fantastic device and is one that will produce really good results if it is something that you can wear for the entire night. So, because the Strasbourg sock was quite uncomfortable for me, I've searched for other options out there. Now, this particular one is from Fujiro, and now the difference between this is we're not pulling up through your toes, we're actually bracing through the ball of your foot, and I find this to be a lot more comfortable. But the downfalls of this brace is because there's no fixation around your heel, you're going to get a little bit of sliding. Also, because you're not pulling up at your toe, you're not going to put your plantar fascia in the most lengthened position that it can possibly be in. And also, I find that these particular straps, when using them, if you pull too hard, what you can actually do is push the top of your foot into this brace and cause some form of numbing, sort of dead foot type of sensation if you're tightening it up too much. But this is pretty common with most types of braces that you can use. Overall, I think this being a lightweight version means that it's easier to sleep with because it's not so heavy, means you can move around underneath the sheets in bed and therefore get more comfortable. But I suppose the downfall, like I've already touched on, is it's not producing the most optimal position. But from my standpoint, I feel this is something that you can wear all night long, and if you're needing to get up to go to the toilet during the night, it's not something that you're going to have to take off to be able to get to and from the toilet. So realistically, it's a pretty happy in between stage where it's not the most optimal position, yet it's a pretty good position and something that's going to help you with your rehab along the way. Now, for the third option that I think is out there is actually, from my perspective, a Kambu or a moon boot as seen up here. Basically, a Kambu is obviously going to hold your foot in that neutral position. So at least your foot is, or your calf is in somewhat of a lengthened position. Your plantar fascia is also being held outside of its most shortened position. So I suppose some of the downfalls for the Kambu are the weight of the boot, so therefore it's going to be hard to move around in bed. Some people find boots really uncomfortable to sleep at night. It really depends on the individual. Me personally, I've found that a Kambu is not too bad, but again, that's an individual thing. The second downfall to this is similar to the Fujiro Splint. It's not putting your foot in the most optimal position, but as I said with the last one, if you're able to wear it for the full night, it's going to be a lot better than not wearing anything at all, and it's going to be a lot better than wearing a Strasbourg sock for 2 hours, 3 hours. And like we all know, sleep is really vital to make sure that we're getting that recovery needed. So in summary, from my perspective, I think the Strasbourg realistically puts your foot in the most optimal position, but something that I'm just not going to be able to wear, and therefore I'm not going to get the benefit from. So for me, the two options of the Kambu and the Fujiro, I actually like the Fujiro, to be honest, purely because it's not going to get in the way of my wife when I'm sleeping in the same bed with her, so she's not going to knock into it all the time and get annoyed with it. Also, I'm able to move around in the bed a lot easier, therefore, I'm not going to get annoyed with it as well. I'm most likely going to be able to continue to wear it. It's lighter, so I can manipulate the way I'm moving. I can get up to go check on our kids a lot easier than what I would with a Kambu. So basically, for me, I think the Fujiro is the way to go, but for each individual person, you realistically need to try it out. If I'm going to recommend one straight off the shelf, I'm probably going to go the Fujiro or the Kambu, just because I know how uncomfortable the Strasbourg Sock is, and I know what other clients have also said to me as well. And realistically, from my perspective, I don't want people buying things that they're not going to use. So Kambu and the Fujiro are probably the options that I'll recommend in the future at this stage.